Hi again. It's Robert, I'm 77 years old, and today, I want to share something I think we don't talk about enough. Last time, I spoke about the harsh realities of being 77. And they are real, no doubt. But that's not the full story. There's another side too. A beautiful one. So if you're in your 70s, or you have someone you love who's growing older, I want to talk to you today not about fear or decline, but about joy. Yes, joy. Because believe it or not, there are some things that get better with age. Some things you start appreciating only when you've been around the block long enough to really understand them. This isn't to sugarcoat aging. It's to give you the full picture. Because life in your late 70s can still be meaningful, peaceful, even deeply satisfying, in ways that might surprise you. So whether you're just entering retirement, well into it, or caregiving for someone in their later years, I hope this gives you a little more hope, perspective, and even a few smiles. Because aging isn't just about losing things. It's also about gaining a few precious things you never expected. Let's dive into it. When I was younger, in my 30s, 40s, and even 50s, life always felt like a race. There was always something to chase. A better job. A bigger house. More savings. A longer resume. But one of the biggest joys I found at 77 is this, that chase is over. You stop running, and you finally start living. I don't feel the pressure anymore to prove myself. I've already had a career. I've already raised a family. I've already seen my share of wins and losses. There's peace in that. Real peace. And with that peace comes space, to just be. To sit on the porch in the morning with a cup of coffee, without thinking about emails or deadlines. To go for a walk just because the weather feels right. To look at your calendar and realize, there's nothing you have to do, and that's a good thing. You know how people say they want to retire to slow down? Well, at 77, I've discovered that slowing down isn't just an option, it's a blessing. Because in that slowness, you start to notice things again, the way the sunlight hits the trees, the smile of a grandchild, the warmth of your partner's hand next to yours. You finally live for moments, not milestones. And that's a kind of joy I never expected. One of the great hidden joys of being 77. You don't have to please everyone anymore. You don't say yes because you feel obligated. You say yes because you want to, and that changes everything. Earlier in life, we often say yes to things out of guilt, pressure, fear of missing out, or just habit. Invitations, responsibilities, social events, family expectations, they pile up. But at this age, I've realized something truly liberating. I get to choose how I spend my time. I no longer feel guilty about skipping a party that goes too late. Or turning down a volunteer event if my knees hurt. Or passing on something that just doesn't light me up anymore. And guess what? The world keeps spinning. There's a strange kind of power in this, not because I'm rebellious, but because I've earned it. You earn this freedom over time. You start to understand the value of rest, of peace, of keeping your energy for what really matters. I also don't argue like I used to. I don't need to prove I'm right in every conversation. I pick my battles, and most of the time, I don't pick them at all. And that peace of mind. It's priceless. You stop apologizing for protecting your time. And that allows you to fill your days with the people and things that truly make you feel alive. Saying no more often lets you say yes to what really counts. At 77, I look back and realize just how much energy I wasted on things that never really mattered. I used to worry about impressing people. I cared about titles, promotions, even what car I drove. But now, that all fades into the background. What matters today is simpler, and far more powerful. A good conversation over coffee. The sound of birds in the morning. A phone call from one of my kids or grandkids. A moment of laughter with my wife. These small things are what make my heart feel full now. When you reach this age, you gain a kind of clarity you don't have in your younger years. It's like someone wipes the fog off the mirror. You see how short life really is, and you stop spending time on things that drain you, like toxic people, petty arguments, or chasing stuff that never brought true happiness. And here's the best part, you feel lighter. When your values get clearer, so does your joy. You focus on love, kindness, gratitude, and you stop letting the rest steal your peace. They call it wisdom, I guess. But to me, it just feels like finally getting the message that life has been trying to teach me all along. Now this one might surprise you. Because sure, at 77, the body doesn't quite work like it used to. The knees ache, the back groans, and I don't jump out of bed like a teenager anymore. But here's the joy, you start appreciating your body not for how it looks, but for how it carries you. I used to get frustrated by my limitations. Slower walks, stiff joints, naps I didn't ask for. But over time, that frustration gave way to gratitude. This body has been through a lot, surgeries, long work days, late nights raising kids, vacations, illnesses, laughter, love. And somehow, it's still here. Still showing up for me every single day. I may not be as strong as I once was, but I'm still mobile. I can still walk beside my wife. I can still stretch in the morning and feel my breath deepen. I can still hold a grandchild's hand or lift a light grocery bag. And that's enough. When you're young, you take movement for granted. But when you're older, every pain-free step feels like a little victory. Every day without a hospital visit feels like a win. And every morning you wake up and your body says, okay, let's go, you feel a quiet sense of triumph. I've learned to treat my body kindly. I move it gently. I rest it often. I feed it better. I thank it more. And that shift, from criticizing it to honoring it, is one of the most beautiful surprises of aging. Somewhere in the middle of life, in all the working, parenting, commuting, and bill paying, a lot of us set aside the things that once made us feel alive. Maybe it was music, painting, writing, gardening, tinkering with old radios, or just sitting outside with a book. For me, it was storytelling. And now, at 77, I found my way back to it. That's one of the greatest joys of this age, you get a second chance to rediscover what you loved before life got in the way. Retirement isn't just about stopping something, it's about starting again. You have time, and more importantly, you have space in your mind. You're no longer preoccupied with the rat race or climbing ladders. That mental clutter clears out, and old passions start to whisper again. For some of us, it's the joy of learning something new, like using a smartphone or starting a YouTube channel. For others, it's going back to something old, like picking up a guitar or baking bread from scratch. These aren't distractions, they're rediscoveries of self. And here's the best part, you don't care if you're good at it. You're not doing it for applause or approval. You're doing it because it brings you peace. Because it feels like home. Reconnecting with an old passion reminds you, you're still you inside. And there's no age limit on joy. In your 20s and 30s, you collect acquaintances like pebbles. Coworkers, neighbors, social circles, holiday parties, life is full of noise. But in your 70s, that noise fades. And what's left? The people who've truly stayed with you. At 77, I found one of the deepest joys is this, your relationships become fewer, but so much richer. I don't need 100 friends anymore. I just need a handful who know me, really know me, and still choose to show up. My wife, of course, is my daily companion in everything. After 52 years of marriage, there's a kind of connection that doesn't need words. A glance, a sigh, a small laugh, it's all communication now. Old friends from my younger years. Some are gone, yes. But those who remain, I hold closer than ever. I call them more. I listen more. And I let the little stuff slide. We've been through enough together that we don't waste time on pride. And there's something special about rebuilding relationships, too, with siblings, grown children, or even old neighbors. I've had conversations in these past few years that I never had during the busy seasons of life. And they've meant the world. The joy of 77 isn't about having a crowded room. It's about having the right people in that room, and truly valuing them while they are still here. At 77, life teaches you that it's not the big events that fill your heart, it's the quiet, ordinary moments. Maybe it's watching the sunrise with a cup of tea, hearing birds sing outside your window, or reading a good book in the afternoon sunlight. Maybe it's a gentle breeze on your face or the smell of rain on the pavement. When you're younger, you tend to overlook these moments, waiting for something big to happen. But at this age, you learn to slow down and savor the small joys that surround you every day. There's a peacefulness that comes from simply being present. From letting your mind rest and your heart open. I catch myself smiling at the sound of grandchildren laughing or the comfort of a familiar song on the radio. These little slices of happiness, they stack up. They build a quiet joy that doesn't need fireworks or fanfare. And when you look back at the day, it's these simple moments you remember most fondly. One of the unexpected joys at 77 is that you stop taking yourself so seriously. When I was younger, I worried a lot about how I looked, what people thought, or whether I was doing things right. But now, I laugh at my mistakes, my forgetfulness, my silly habits. Like the other day at the gym, I called my friend Max numb for days, and it just became a running joke between us. Or when I repeat a story I told last week and everyone just smiles and listens anyway. This ability to laugh at yourself, especially when things get a little awkward or confusing, is freeing. It lightens your spirit and brings others closer to you. I've learned that laughter isn't just fun, it's medicine. It breaks down walls, heals wounds, and reminds you that life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. So yeah, I've become a little more goofy in my old age. And that's one of the best gifts of all. There's a quiet joy that settles in your heart when you realize you've left a mark, even if no one's clapping. At 77, you start to notice how your presence has rippled out into the lives of others. Maybe it's the way your children raise their kids. Maybe it's advice you gave someone years ago that they still remember. Or maybe it's just the kind of energy you brought into the room, steady, kind, calm. I used to think legacy meant building something big, having your name on a plaque, writing a book, or leaving behind a fortune. But now I realize, legacy is the way people feel when they remember you. It's the character you built over a lifetime. It's how you showed up, day after day. And that doesn't need to be broadcasted or documented. It just is. Sometimes I'll see my grandchild say something thoughtful, and I'll think, maybe I helped shape that. Or I'll hear my wife tell a story that includes something I taught her decades ago, and it makes me smile inside. At this age, you stop needing credit, and that's a joy all its own. You just feel grateful you were able to contribute something good. By 77, you've lived long enough to carry some regrets, we all do. Words you didn't say. Mistakes you made. People you lost touch with. But here's the unexpected joy, you learn to forgive yourself. When you're younger, the past can feel like a weight you carry everywhere. You replay decisions, rethink conversations, wonder how things might have turned out differently. But now, I've started to see things with gentler eyes. I realize I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. I've let go of a lot of guilt. I've made apologies when I could. And I've learned to give myself the same grace I'd give a friend. That peace. It softens you. It opens the door to deeper rest, better relationships, and even healing in places you thought would stay broken forever. You stop trying to rewrite the past, and start living better in the present. And that kind of peace, the peace of letting go, is one of the most underrated joys of aging. People often associate aging with becoming weaker. But at 77, I found something quite the opposite, a quiet, inner strength that didn't exist when I was younger. It's not the kind of strength that lifts weights or climbs ladders. It's the strength that helps you get through the hard days with grace. The strength that helps you sit with grief, endure losses, and still find reasons to smile the next morning. You face more in your 70s, more health scares, more friends passing, more reminders that life is fragile. And yet, here you are. Still standing. Still choosing to show up. That, my friend, is real strength. I've surprised myself sometimes, the way I've handled things I never thought I could. Whether it was letting go of a dream, learning to live with pain, or watching someone I love decline. Somehow, the heart grows steadier with time. There's joy in realizing you're stronger than you thought. Not in a loud, flashy way, but in a deep, quiet, enduring way. In your 20s, time feels endless. In your 40s, it feels busy. But at 77, time becomes something else entirely, a treasure. You don't waste it anymore, not on grudges, not on shallow conversations, not on things that don't fill your soul. Every morning feels like a blessing. Every quiet evening, a reward. I don't count years now, I count mornings I get to wake up beside my wife. I count good meals shared with family. I count little drives to nowhere, just because the weather is nice. I count the belly laughs and the silent prayers. There's a sharp clarity that comes with knowing you don't have forever. And surprisingly, that makes each moment feel more alive. You notice more. You love more deeply. You listen better. You become more present because the noise of the world fades, and what's left is now. Time slows down, not because life is dull, but because you finally learned to live inside of it. And that's a joy I never saw coming. In the earlier stages of life, everything feels complicated. Schedules, decisions, responsibilities, stuff, always more stuff. But at 77, there's a kind of deep joy that comes from letting it all go. You don't need a closet full of clothes. You don't need 10 kinds of shampoo. You don't need a calendar crammed with appointments. What you do need, a peaceful space, a few people who care, and time to enjoy it all. I've started giving things away. Downsizing. Decluttering. Not because I have to, but because it feels freeing. The fewer things I own, the more clearly I can see what really matters. And it's never been the gadgets or the fancy stuff. It's always been the experience. Simplicity doesn't mean going without. It means finally having enough. Enough rest. Enough love. Enough presence. Enough joy. You stop chasing more, and you start feeling full. That shift, from accumulating to appreciating, is one of the most peaceful transitions of this age. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. When you're younger, beauty often feels loud, flashing lights, fast thrills, dramatic moments. But at 77, beauty becomes quieter and deeper. You start noticing the details, like the way sunlight dances on the floor in the late afternoon. The sound of wind through trees. The wrinkles on your partner's hands and what they've carried over a lifetime. The kindness in a stranger's smile at the grocery store. These things used to pass me by. I was always rushing. Always planning. Always on to the next thing. But now, I stop. I notice. I feel it. It's like the world has slowed down just enough for me to finally see it. And what I see, it's stunning. Not in a grand, showy way. But in a way that humbles you. A way that reminds you that life is art, even in its quietest forms. At this age, you stop needing everything to be impressive, and you start feeling off for things that are simply real. And that kind of beauty. It's everywhere. You just have to be still enough to let it in. Here's the most surprising thing I've learned at 77. Joy doesn't come from being young, it comes from being here. All those years, I thought happiness belonged to the young. That once you got older, joy would slowly fade, like a light dimming over time. But I was wrong. Joy doesn't live in youth. It lives in awareness. In being present. In loving what you have, instead of longing for what you've lost. At this age, I've laughed just as hard, felt just as much love, and cried just as deeply as I did in my younger years, sometimes more. The difference. I notice it now. I don't let it